Hi, and welcome to another special live edition of Marketplace Masters, brought to you by Merchant Spring, the leading marketplace analytics platform for agencies and investors. Marketplace Masters is all about going deeper into the challenges e-commerce sellers face to broaden understanding and provide practical actions. I am your host, Paul Sonneveld, and today I am joined by Aaron Moore. In today's episode, we are discussing Amazon vendor profitability and the levers you can control to improve your bottom line. Today, I'm joined by Aaron, as I mentioned earlier. Aaron has focused 100% of his time in building and growing brands on Amazon since 2019. He has over 10 years of experience selling on Amazon, both 1P and 3P, with over 50 million of managed sales. Prior to starting his own agency, Aaron worked for a sporting goods company where he digitally transformed the company from bricks to clicks. Aaron grew sales from 1 million to over 15 million in less than 5 years. Most of that done via the Amazon vendor platform. Thank you for being on the show, Aaron.
Paul, thanks for having me. Great intro. Let's get down to the business, though.
Before we do, I just want to remind viewers that this is a live session. Lots of pros and cons that come with that. But one of the things you can do is ask us questions, right? We'd love to see lots of questions. You can do that by commenting inside the event, either on LinkedIn or on YouTube, and we will get those questions and I will handball them to Aaron during this episode. All right, well, let's jump right in, Aaron. Let's just start off with the basics, right? Particularly for those viewers who may be not as familiar with the Amazon vendor platform as such. Just take us through the basics. You know, what is the difference between Amazon vendor and Amazon seller?
Okay, Amazon 1P and 3P, we'll call it. Now, 1P is the Seller Central, and 1P is the Vendor Central. Okay, so the big difference is in 3P, you own your inventory. It's on Amazon's shelf. Amazon can fulfill it for you, fulfill it for yourself. And it's kind of more like having a retail store and selling it off your shelf there, but with Amazon's help. 1P or Vendor Central is more similar to a wholesale model where Amazon buys the products from you. You ship them the products. They own it. They send you, they hopefully pay you on time for it. And you kind of rinse and repeat that cycle. So basically it's like a wholesale model, the 1P version. The 3P version is more like a retail model where it's your own store.
Thank you, Aaron. That's great. Great way to clarify things. Now, you have been a vendor manager for many, many years in your previous career. Just take us through, what aspects of that particular role dealing with the Amazon vendor platform did you find most challenging?
Profits. Profits were absolutely the number one most important thing. I mean, most important thing for any company, period. But getting control of your profits in the 1P system is very tough because you have limited amounts of places to get profits from. So once you establish your contract, your fees are built in, your discounts are built in. You better hope you know your cost of goods and where your expenses are at and everything else, and work backwards from there. So watching your numbers, knowing your numbers internally, as in your company, and cost of goods, and your operational expenses, plus knowing the expenses on the Amazon side inside the platform.
So let me just, you mentioned the word contract, and this is premised on sort of having a contract in place with Amazon. For those who've never negotiated with Amazon on the space, and this is a whole new topic in itself, so let's try not to go too deep, but just, you mentioned the word contract. What does that mean in terms of, having a contract in place, and right. How does that come about?
Okay, so however you get into the system, it's mainly by invite now for 1P. But however you get in there, once you're in there, there'll be a contract in place. Amazon says, hey, all right, cool, we'll buy from you, but here's our contract. Contract says a lot of things like, give us your best price and all that other fun stuff. But here's the deliverables in it are There'll be terms. So terms are usually 2%, 2% net 60. So there's a 2% discount right there on your terms, whatever the terms are agreed upon. There'll be a shipping terms where they take an X% of your for shipping. For damage goods, they take an X% for that. And there'll be a co-op. Co-op being it goes to advertising and everything else. That is your built-in contract that is fixed. It's negotiated on once a year. Usually the terms it's locked in for your time there. So the terms won't usually change, but the shipping charges, as in Amazon pays for the shipping inbound. So that's percentage there, but the damaged goods can fluctuate and the co-op can fluctuate. So every year they'll come back and they'll negotiate. Well, we want 2 or 3 points higher, or never lower, 2 or 3 points higher on one of those sections. And guess what? In that last 12 months, you had 2 to 5% increase in prices or logistics or something else. And they still want a discount on prices. So that's your built-in discounts that will happen every year and will most likely go up every year.
Yeah, I think we've another session coming up in terms of how to specifically prepare for those annual vendor negotiations. It sounds certainly like I'm sure a lot of Amazon vendors are not looking forward to that yearly cycle, because I'm sure they're not looking to gain a lot from those cycles. But
Yeah.
look, you've already mentioned a lot of items that you need to think about when it comes to your profit on the Amazon vendor account. Take us through. When you're a vendor manager, how did you put an accurate picture of profitability together, for your Amazon vendor account?
Right.
How did you go about that?
Well, number one, it goes down to who is in control of that account, who's in control of your P&L, right? So, and it goes back to that contract. I've taken on clients now in 1P that I'm like, did you know you agreed to X amount percentage? Like, no. Well, who's ever in their account pushing the buttons, doing the invoicing, the advanced ship notices and stuff like that, just agreed to it arbitrarily. So being in charge or being in control, or knowing when that agreement's coming along and who's agreeing to discounts is very important. So because there's other discounts that can come back. There'll be a price protection discount that they'll ask for. They'll do a bulk buy discount. Okay. If somebody's in there clicking buttons and agreeing to that stuff, Amazon doesn't care who that person was. It's locked in now. So controlling who, what, and where on agreeing to the discount. So that's important. The other thing is on your P&L, lining out every line on your sales. So you should have a top line with all your Amazon sales, just with your Amazon. And if you're doing 1P and 3P, just line out 1P sales, line out 3P sales. Then in your expenses, line out every single expense and discount Amazon takes for your 1P account. So you record that every single month and make sure it's accurate to a T. Whoever is doing your bookkeeping, this is where they make their money at, or make the money for you, by recording absolutely everything. Then after that, it's cost of goods. So if all your discounts, your booked in discounts add up to 20% discounts, and you're selling it to them for $100, there's instantly 20% discount on that. So now you're at 80. Okay. Where's your cost of goods at? Do you know your cost of goods? What's your variable cost of goods? It's going to go up and it's going to go down. Where are you at with the profit margin? So your bookkeeper is vital in this part. But if you don't know your cost of goods and your net discount after the standard deductions are taken, now you could get into a lot of trouble.
Yeah, that sounds like a very complex P&L there. Just in a practical step, right? How much of this information you get from Amazon and out of Vendor Central versus you have to really piece together from different sources within your organization, contracts and the like?
Right. So all the discounts will be in will be in Vendor Central. So all your terms, all your agreed to discounts will be in there. The other factor of this is chargebacks. So chargebacks come in. You shipped them too little. You shipped them too many. You put the sticker on the wrong side of the box. You shipped it late. You shipped it early. You didn't give it a shipping notice. Something like that. That will be a chargeback, which will count on there too. And then the price protection and the bulk buy discounts will also be in there. But it's all in there. There's a dashboard just for all the chargeback deductions on there, so you're allowed to see it. All the reports are there for you to pull them and look at them. Whether you understand them or not is something else, but it's all there to look at for all the discounts and all the discounts taken. So if they owe you $100,000 and there's $32,000 in deductions, that's lined out in there. And guess what? If it's not, you get to make a case for that and start fighting for it with data.
Yeah. We while you're talking about deductions, I have heard of some horrific stories of sort of Amazon charging back some deductions that perhaps they had forgotten about and forgotten to charge, and vendors getting lumped with enormous amounts of or deductions. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
What's your experience of this? Is it unpredictable or I guess not as transparent as you'd like?
You have to pay attention. You have the thing is, what I learned was I used to fight for every penny. Why? Because those pennies send a signal to anybody that's dealing with the account. They like their pennies and they keep track of their pennies. They're going to fight for their pennies. So there's even the payment terms. If it's 2% 10 net 60 and they paid me in 12 days, I'm fighting for that. I'm fighting for that 2%. Now that may not add up to a lot, but all the other deductions will. So you really have to be absolutely disciplined on absolutely everything that there is in there and fight for every penny on everything. Now, make sure you're not wrong. We don't want to set a wrong tone on that one. But if you're right, have your ducks in a row. If you're fighting, if they do a chargeback because you sent too many, too little, I used to, every single order used to include a picture with the box on there on the scale. So I have the weight, I have the contents, I have the label in there, and that went with every order. Why? Because it's not if, it's when we get chargebacks, it makes the process of transferring it on fighting it faster because it comes directly from the shipping department straight to invoicing. It all sits in the digital file, and that accountant or whoever is in charge of that just has to get the information they need fast and fight for every penny.
It certainly sounds like something you have to be all over. You can't take a backseat or a passive approach and hope for the best. It sounds like you might be leaving a lot of money on the table if you adopt that approach.
And
sorry, go ahead, Aaron.
It takes a certain personality to fight for that too. Like I had in my accounting staff, again, I'm a company of one now, but in my previous company, I had a whole team, a staff team, right, or accounting team. So I picked the people that just can't stand stuff like that. And I used to have like a jar of change like on the desk and going like, we fight for every penny. And because those pennies turn into tens and thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we tend to forget that the average size of a vendor account is substantially larger than a seller account, right? And what are the thresholds these days that sort of Amazon's looking at in order to qualify for being part of that program?
It's usually an invite now. It's north of $5 million a year. I think they like them around 10 to 15 million. It seems to be the ones that are 5 million or less or so that are kind of releasing them now or giving them permission. Like, yeah, you could be free from the program if your sales don't drop, kind of thing. So they like them in that probably 10 to 15 million is probably the butter zone, but north of 5 is when you can start getting looked at.
Yeah, great. So you've already mentioned a couple of pitfalls on the I'm pure on the finances side, on the rebates, discounts, and the like. As we mentioned at the start of this episode, you've been in this game for a long time. What are some of the most common pitfalls that you see Amazon vendor managers make? What would be on your top 3 or top 4?
Agreeing to contracts without managerial approval, without financial approval. You need whoever logs into your vendor central account. You could limit permissions, but then it just causes problems. But whoever is in your account needs to be a fiduciary looking after your financial best interest and knowing that all discounts have to be approved by upper management or by somebody that controls the cost of goods, because that's a person that understands it. The second one is, or that's the person who's butt on the line for it. But the second one is their bulk buy discounts. These are a double-edged sword. So they're going to come in, and it's what it is. It's what it sounds like. They're going to come in and buy a lot of product, and they want usually about a 25% discount off their current pricing, which is great for short-term cash flow. If you just need to pay some bills or something like that, that's cool. But what happens is, okay, you took a 25% hit on your margins. So your net margins over the year are going to be lower. Now they may have overbought on that bulk buy. So now they won't order for 2 months, 3 months, depending on how sales are. So you have less product, less margin, and they're not ordering any for another couple months. So you really have to weigh those out. And the third one is cost of goods. What does your product cost? What does it really cost out the door? Because at the end of the year, when you shipped a couple $1 million in products and you realize that your 3% margins or 15 or 20, whatever you want to be at, it's too late. So knowing your cost of goods.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. Which sort of brings us to the other part of this question, right? Which is there's pitfalls, but then there's also best practices. And I'm particularly interested in your view is when you see an Amazon vendor manager at work, if you were to observe them, right, be sort of an invisible person, looking over their shoulder. What would you say constitutes best practice? What are the world-class Amazon vendor managers, what are they doing on a day-to-day basis?
Watching the numbers. So they're, the discounts are taken, except for the payment discounts, they're taken on every payment. But the discounts, the standard deductions are built in quarterly. Okay, so you're kind of getting yourself on a schedule. All right, I'm getting a payment for an invoice coming in. Invoice is $30,000. All right, easy math. It's $100,000. Okay, so it's 2% terms on there. $2,000 should be deducted on that. Nothing else. If there is anything else, it'll tell you, or it should tell you on there. And then you could go and look in your financial dashboard in Vendor Central and see what deductions there were. Are they valid? And it may be just a couple hundred deductions, but if you're doing millions, that stuff adds up, right? So just watch your money coming in, watch your money being deducted. What's deducted? There's your first clue to find out what it was, and then start fighting it. Was it an overage, an underage, late, box label, something like that? Well, if you have all your ducks in a row and you're ready to fight that, cool. You just pull that order, pull that file. You have all your evidence from your weights and dimensions and pictures and everything else in there, and boom, you send that file. And then you get the next deposit of money coming in, and you repeat. So that's on the financial side.
Yep. That's so obviously as you were talking, I'm getting the image of like a boxing ring, and you're always ready, you're always on your toes, you're never like outside the ring sipping water, you're always like running around, getting ready, you're looking in the eye, and I guess it's not completely as adversarial like that, but
no, it is. It is. It has to be. If you want to make money, that's what you have. You have to have this leaning forward mentality, and every deposit from Amazon is a new round in that boxing match. You've got to keep fighting for it. Fight for every penny.
That's that's right. Sounds like there's dollars there, right? So don't leave them there. Just practically speaking, how do you fight with it? Obviously, let's say you've got all your information. You feel that Amazon is wrong about something, a particular charge. You've got your evidence. How do you actually go about this, right? How do you dispute it? What's the mechanism?
Yeah, it's basically filing a case inside the Vendor Central system, very similar to the Seller Central, and you just go, and there's obviously different categories for chargeback category or something like that. You put it in there. You hopefully by now, if you've done a bunch of them, you know exactly what words to say and how to say it. This was this is what I'm including. Please, please reverse this chargeback, something like that. And honestly, I think they're trained to say no all the time, because you never give up on the first denial. So you just basically take that information, file the claim or case, and keep on filing it until they give you the money back. And clawing it back is very graphic and true.
It sounds very similar to Seller Central. Those that persist, and don't take it personal, and just keep hammering away at those case logs. Eventually, you'll get a result.
Yeah, stay organized with those case logs. A good a naming convention for the title. Usually by the invoice number. Again, I tracked everything by the invoice number that was pertained to, and everything else that came out of. So good naming conventions and systems, and when you're on round 2 or 3 or 4 of it, something to keep a track of that.
That is a really practical and great tip, just to think about naming conventions in terms of your cases, right? Because there can be a lot of them, particularly like yourself, you're managing a lot of clients on that platform. How to sort of keep everything organized. That actually makes a lot of sense. We are almost out of time, but I was just going to ask you one last question, Aaron, which was, for those viewers out there, particularly those that are, have day-to-day responsibility for Amazon vendor management, what other tips or advice do you have for them? And specifically, I'd like to rephrase that question sometimes around, there's a couple of days left in the week. We can't do everything. But there's maybe a couple of 1%ers we can really go after this week. What advice do you have for other Amazon vendor managers out there?
Your books, how you structure your books, your P&L, and again, because hopefully you have some insight or some feedback or a vote on how your books are structured. Okay, so the better your books are set up to record expenses from Vendor Central, the faster you notice a rise in expenses, a decrease in expenses, or an issue that pops up. Because then you could schedule that, or you could look at that month over month and figure out what that percentage is, and then you have the breadcrumbs to follow that trail to fix that problem. So structurally setting up the books to make a nice quick summary for glancing summary and knowing where to look at can be your biggest time saving at the end of the day.
Thank you, Aaron. That has been absolutely fantastic. We are out of time, so we're going to have to wrap up here. Aaron, I just want to really thank you for coming on the show. We really appreciate your expertise that you've brought up to the table today, and just your generosity in sharing that with the wider community. Amazon vendor profitability and margins and all those charges can be such a complex topic, and you've certainly helped us demystify the topic and, been more than generous in providing all those practical tips along the way. I was just going to ask, for any viewers that are interested in exploring your specific services, whether it be on the vendor side or the seller side, what's the best way to get in touch?
Search for me on LinkedIn, Amazon Aaron. I should pop up in there somewhere. And I'd be happy to answer or help with anybody that needs it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Aaron. Well, that's it for today's episode of Marketplace Masters. Don't forget to join us next week for another special edition of the Amazon Vendor Marketplace Masters. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.
What's up? Oh.